Buckle up. It's the Roxy Podcast Show.
Welcome, everyone. We are glad you are here. Today, Roxy speaks on the new law in effect in Texas to display the 10 Commandments in classroom.
One religion, one nation, the first step toward authoritarian faith. Texas is taking a deliberate step toward religious nationalism, cloaked in the language of tradition and morality. By mandating the 10 Commandments in every public school classroom starting this year, September 1st, 2025, lawmakers like Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick aren't just promoting values, they're sending a message to specific demographics, Christian conservatives, particularly evangelicals, telling them, this government is yours. This country is yours. Sound familiar? It should. This mirrors the playbook of Donald Trump, who built his political machine not just on populism, but on fusing Christian identity with national identity. God and country became a rallying cry, but only for a narrow slice of both. Trump didn't just court the religious right, he built a fortress around them, offering power in exchange for allegiance. Now Texas is scaling that same fortress wall, hoisting the 10 Commandments like a battle flag over public education. Russ Vought was one of the major players who helped get Donald Trump elected this last time. He said back in 2023, "We are going to take power back from the deep state and return it to God-fearing Americans." This isn't just a Texas stunt. Texas's move is part of a wider effort embraced by Trump-aligned policymakers and activists. It's not just a Lone Star experiment. It's a signal to the nation about where some want to take the American government and education. And where did Trump get the blueprint for this strategy? From figures like Stephen Miller, his former senior aide and now head of American Legal First, one of the main advisory groups behind Project 2025, a sweeping roadmap to reshape the federal government around Christian national principles. And I can almost hear you now screaming at the radio or streaming device that you're listening to saying that Donald Trump had nothing to do with Project 2025. He didn't write it, he didn't read it. And that may be true, and that gives him plausible deniability. I believe he did not write it, and I believe that he knew nothing about it. However, I do believe that he surrounded himself with senior aides and people that did write Project 2025. He is joined by Russ Vought, who I just quoted, a self-described Christian nationalist and current director of the Office of Management and Budget, founder of the Center for Reviewing America, another key player in Project 2025. While not listed in planning documents as Deputy Chief or Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor, Vought was a prominent figure in discussions of helping get Trump elected the second term and has been instrumental in the development of Project 2025. So what are the common denominators between Texas's Bill SB 10 and Project 2025? Well, Project 2025 calls for government rooted in Christian values. SB 10 calls for a mandate and 10 Commandments in the classrooms. Project 2025 advocates school prayer and faith-based curricula. SB 10 uses public schools to enforce religious messaging. Project 2025 frames secularism as anti-Christian. SB 10 politically targets secularism as a threat. Project 2025 declares Christianity is under attack and in need of state protection. SB 10 appeals to Christian grievances and moral panic. One religion, one identity. This isn't inclusion, it's establishment. The 10 Commandments are sacred to some, but not all. There are other religions besides Christianity. Now, Christianity has their 10 Commandments, Sermon on the Mount, etc., which promote worship, justice, and moral law. Judaism has the 613 mitzvot, which promotes civil, ritual, and ethical laws. Islam has their 5 pillars of Sharia, promoting worship, social responsibility. Indigenous people have the 7 grandfather teachings and oral codes, which promote land-based community ethics. None of these belief systems are being posted in Texas classrooms. Only one is. And that's not neutrality. That's power. We've seen this road before, and let's be honest, the last time a Western power merged one religion, one flag, and one pure identity, it didn't end well. In 1945, the world witnessed what happens when the state replaces pluralism with religious and ethnic absolutism. No, Texas isn't Nazi Germany, but the logic of consolidating power under one religious identity is not new. It's old, and it's dangerous. And it always starts like this, with symbols and schools and rhetoric about purity. Now let's take a look at the roadmap on how we got here. The Heritage Foundation consisted of people that we just spoke about, designed by Trump's Inner Circle. It was written by Stephen Miller and pushed by Russ Vought. They in turn write Project 2025. As it spreads around the country among Republicans, it gets into the state of Texas, where it's used as guidelines for SB 10. Next thing you know, we have 10 commandments in public schools. So you can see how we got here and where this is going. Rachel Lacer, President and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, has said, "You can't promote religion through public schools without excluding or alienating students who don't share that faith." What's happening in Texas and being applauded by the Trump's orbit isn't about God. It's about control, who has it, who keeps it, and who gets erased in the name of tradition. Bills like SB 10 are test runs for a larger national strategy, one that replaces democratic pluralism with state-sponsored religious dominance. The ACLU and other civil rights groups argue that SB 10 violates the established clause of the First Amendment, which prohibits the government from establishing or endorsing a religion. They contend that displaying the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms amounts to religious coercion and erodes the separation of church and state. Opponents warn the bill could harm students and families by imposing specific religious viewpoints, particularly on those from different faiths or non-religious backgrounds. They also note it puts teachers in a difficult position, potentially forcing them to explain or defend religious content that's not part of their curriculum. And I have to say that it was because of a teacher reaching out to me and pointing this out, I was shocked and unaware of it, and it motivated me to write this blog. Some Christian nationalists argue that the 10 Commandments offer moral guidance, and I don't entirely disagree. There's educational value in teaching ethics, compassion, and personal responsibility. But here's the problem. It's not the government's role to decide which moral code belongs in the classroom. That responsibility belongs to the families, not lawmakers with a religious agenda. SB 10 stirs up more division. Again, something this administration seems to love to do.
You have been listening to the Roxy Podcast Show.
Thank you for joining us today. Please share with your friends and follow Roxy Podcast Show on Facebook, Twitter, WordPress, or Patreon. Please join us again.